Hey! Whoops! There we go. I'm going to edit that out of this video. I'm wearing my fuzzy socks because it's just colder than heck. It's not super cold. It's not like I'm in Minnesota or something. You know, one of the earmarks of a zealot is that when you say something that's factual, logical, and is wise, and you have doctrinal substantiation for it, they either ignore you, or they shout at you, or they browbeat you. Sometimes even more than that. This is the case. I have said many times I actually like making videos of things that other people aren't talking about, and specifically they don't know. I've read this all over the internet for decades. We don't actually have a distinction between mind and thought and consciousness. In English language, it's kind of all that squishy lump that exists between our ears. And we'll say the word heart, too. And of course, there's a metaphorical heart, an allegorical heart, and then there's a literal heart, right? Now, if it's allegorical and it's symbolic, it's like, oh, you stole my heart. We're not actually talking about that tough muscle that exists right here that's pumping blood. And nothing in metaphysics, yeah. You say the word spirituality. I don't like the word spirituality at all because it is completely aspecific. But there's nothing in metaphysics that talks about the literal heart as this blood-pumping muscle that has any connection with liberation or wisdom. It just doesn't, because it's insane to think that. But they use that as a cover word for the word cheetah, and specifically when we're talking about original Buddhism. When I say original Buddhism, I'm talking about the original article. And Samyutta Nikaya 5.4, actually Gautama called his teachings Brahmayana, which means path of the absolute. The term Buddhism didn't exist until a few centuries ago. They'll spend an enormous amount of time trying to refute the Atman, or the soul, in original Buddhism, which is completely impossible. It is the light, jyoti, the only refuge, such as an Attasarana, Anandasarana. But when they can't win that debate, because nothing that they say or believe is based in doctrine, facts, logic, or wisdom, they'll move on to the cheetah. I've made a 17-point proprietary list on the word cheetah. Let me know if you need a list to it. I copy the link to it because I've posted it many times. They'll go after that. Say, well, the word cheetah, it just means heart. Well, that's completely ludicrous. There's a 17-point proprietary list that the cheetah is the basis for nirvana. And it's also, too, the importance of the cheetah in Advaita Vedanta. Also, too, in the passage Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. I'm sure you've heard of that passage if you know anything about Indian metaphysics at all. I'm sure you've heard that. I don't know if you know what it means. We'll talk about that here in a second. But that really is, we don't have to talk about the soul, because they think that's always the full frontal attack. And if, like Sun Tzu said, he talked about different ways, to go on the offense. Like you find the weak point. You never try to go in the front door because that's always fortified. So, still, you can always get them on the Atman, because a Buddhist will always tell you, 99.9% of the time, because they don't actually follow any of the teachings of what Buddhism actually did teach in the Nikayas, which is the only pre-sectarian corpus. And you'll sit there, debate back and forth about the Atman, or the Atan in Pali, which, by the way, the most important words, I don't know if you knew this, I'm sure you didn't, the most important words in ancient Pali are the exact same words in ancient Egyptian. The word Atan, or Atman in Sanskrit, or Atan in Pali, the same word in ancient Egyptian. The word Chet, the pillar Chet. There's all these neat words that are the exact same in ancient Egyptian as they are in Pali. Don't you find that fascinating? Aren't you also find it fascinating, which I'm sure you don't know this either, that one of the pillar edicts, actually a rock edict, of King Ashok, look up who King Ashok is, ancient times, said that the tenets of Buddhism, of course the word Buddhism didn't exist back then. They're talking, the word actually in Brahmi Prakrit, the ancient language that's written on the pillar edicts, is called Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasana literally means doctrine of the Buddha. So the word Buddhism, like I said, didn't exist until a few centuries ago. In ancient times, written on the pillar edicts and the rock edicts of King Ashoka, it's called Buddha Sasana. Anyway, it says the Buddha Sasana, or the doctrine of the Buddha, is being observed by King Ptolemy II of ancient Egypt. So, and of course, India didn't exist back then either. But don't you find that fascinating? that all the way over here in present-day India. Yeah, actually some of them, the edicts are in present-day Afghanistan, but then Magadha Valley, being controlled by King Ashok and beyond. Those precepts, the doctrine is being observed in ancient Egypt. Same words in ancient Egyptian as they are in ancient Pali. So this is another front. It's kind of the second front of, I don't want to use the word fight for original Buddhism, but I guess I could say battle for the original doctrine of Buddhism. They will say, well, cheetah just means heart. It's like, well, that's ludicrous. You either mean a heart in the symbolic sense, like, oh, you took my heart away, which, let's roll with that. But that doesn't mean anything. It cannot mean anything logically. It can't be, factual. It's completely ludicrous. What are we talking about? Because the actual heart is just nothing other than a muscle. It's nothing. There's nothing there. Countless cultures have talked about it, and the reason why they talk about it, of course, is that's what keeps us alive. And you can be brain dead and the body can still be alive. That's the case today where we actually have a bunch of advanced machines where the body is still kept alive, but the person is technically dead because they're brain dead, even though the body's still alive. Anyway, once the heart gave out, it's over with, right? So we call that the seat of the soul, the heart. Well, the word cheetah does not mean heart. And it had, however, been not interpreted but skewed and covered up by the Theravadins, because the Pali Text Society got the ideas for the meanings of these Pali words from the Theravadins. Those are those yellow-robed guys in Ceylon, Laos, Burma, Thailand. It's like, well, this is what this word means, heart. Oh, really? And so that actually entered into the Pali Text Society dictionary. What it refers to is the Greek word nous, in the Latin to be spiritus sanctum, or ultimately the soul. Because let's talk about the distinction, too, that they make. There's only two passages like this, and they completely use this to attempt to support their position. And regarding the cheetah and the mama and the vijnana. And these are synonymous when ignorance is present. And we're talking about the nous, sort of the mind. Mano just means mentation, thought. And consciousness, vijnana, literally vijnana too, in Pali it literally means ignorance or agnosis. Vi plus prefixual plus jnana or gnosis. So it literally means ignorance. So the word for consciousness also means conventional ignorance. And that is metaphysically 1000% accurate. That is what consciousness is. It is consubstantiality between matter and spirit. It is the substantial manifestation, just as the broadcast in the radio. Because the broadcast is not the signal, the broadcast is the interpolation of the signal by the radio, and that's exactly what consciousness is. Anyway, it says, itapi chitta, itapi mana, itapi vijnana. So long as ignorance is present, then these are all operationally one thing. And that's in the case of a worldling or a patujana. But patujana doesn't mean worldling, it means a conventional fool, which is, of course, a conventional worldling. So, but it literally means fool, by the way. So as long as ignorance is present, these are one and the same thing. The actual nous, sort of the mind, i.e. the spiritus sanctum, the thought and the consciousness, they are operationally one thing. However, given wisdom, the cheetah is that which precedes the skandhas, or the khandhas. Sanskrit, Pali, makes no difference. There's a 17-point proprietary list. The cheetah is the only noun in doctrine which obtains the state of non-clinging. Anupada. This is immortality. Amatya datya. That being the liberated cheetah. Liberated cheetah? Oh, that must mean it's not psychophysical. Cheetah does not mean heart. That's completely ridiculous. So, cheetah is the only thing which obtains to be gathered in the realm of immortality. He gathers the cheetah within the realm of immortality. Amatya datya. This is tranquility. This is that which is most excellent. The cheetah is said to be the basis, arvana, for paranavana, which is the highest appellation. This is the only noun in doctrine that is said of this. Digha 2.157 no longer subsists. Limitless, no longer sensations, said to be unbound. His cheetah, the cheetah, is definitely ahu liberated. Ahu vimuta, absolutely or definitely liberated. Cheetah is anything differentiated from the five khandhas, which is rupa, vedana, sana, sankhara, and vijnana. When wisdom is manifest, then there is distinction, Experiences, he sees it playing, forms, feelings, impulses, consciousness, the psychophysical, as pain, as an affliction, as foreignness, as empty, shunyata, as selfless, anatta. So he turns the cheetah, i.e. the non-aggregate, away from these, and therein gathers the cheetah within the realm of immortality. Buddhahood is regarding the cheetah. Nirvana is regarding the cheetah. I could go on with a 17-point list. It gets up better and better and better. This noun has the 17 most important appellations about it in doctrine. Yet you'll never hear this from any book. I mean this literally. There's not a single book out there you can buy on Amazon, or you'll hear from any Mahayanists or the yellow-robed guys in Southeast Asia. They'll never, most of them, they can't read Pali. They have no idea. They just follow what they're taught. My teacher told me. Well, who cares? Let's just go with what the actual teachings say. And that's, of course, the reason why I have no connection to religion. I want nothing to do with it, because it's a belief system based in dogma and a figurehead, some sort of master, guru. Doesn't make any difference. I'm not interested in any of that filth. Never have been, never will be. My mind is too strong to fall for that filth. So, anyway, bhava nirodhana bandham, the subjugation of becoming, means nirvana. This is no different than yoga chitta vritti nirodha. This is the Sanskrit that people will talk about all the time. Yoga, I think you know what the word yoga means. Well, yoga literally, from the Prakrit and Brahmi Prakrit word yukta, means to yoke to. And it's in reference to liberation. Transcendence, you're yoking to the divine, to wisdom. Yoga, or liberation, the liberation methodology thereof, is chitta vritti nirodha. So, the path to and the summum bonum of liberation is chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta, of course, like I said, is the spiritus sanctum. Is the nous. Vritti means perturbations, disturbance, kind of like the flames here flickering. These flickering flames in ancient Pali would be called vritti, perturbations, movements, agitation. Nirodha means the subjugation thereof, the ending thereof. So yoga is, of the chitta, vritti nirodha, the subjugation of perturbation. Perturbation is agitation, manifestation. Think in terms of frequency. All electromagnetic radiation, which is tunable by a radio, right? We, of course, all know that, right? It has a set frequency and a wavelength. Well, that frequency, that cycle of the frequency would be called, in the ancient Pali, a vritti, a perturbation. The subjugation or ending of that perturbation, yeah? And that's all EMF is, including gamma radiation. The ending of that is liberation. With no perturbation, the signal is not a signal by definition. It is untunable. How do you tune something without a frequency and a wavelength? The best antennas on Earth could never tune an unmodulated signal. It wouldn't be a signal at all, would it? What would, therefore, then the signal be? It's not a signal, it's not an emission, it's not even an ether perturbation, because there's no perturbation. Because all fields are ether perturbation modalities. What, therefore, then, is the ether without perturbation? Trick question. The ether without perturbation is the ether! There's nowhere, no place to find it. It is pure, unmanifest, undisturbed inertia. That is liberation. I have all the doctrinal passages here. I've been translating ancient Pali now for 25 years. 24, actually. That is the liberation ontology based in wisdom. It's the ending of the perturbations. Because this is not a Buddhist phrase, but it's the exact same thing, because the word Buddhism is conventional. It only existed a few hundred years ago. Invented Buddhism. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which is the exact same thing as bhava nirodhana bandham. Suvimutta chittasana bandham. The thoroughly liberated chitta means nirvana. These two passages from Buddhism and in the Sanskrit, much later, are exactly the same. Suvimutta chittasana bandham, the thoroughly liberated chitta, means nirvana, and bhava nirodhana bandham. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha and bhava nirodhana bandham, This is what happens when you think about 10 things at once. So these two passages are identical. Bhava nirodhana bandham and yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Because the end goal of yoga is nirvana. There's not a single Indian metaphysician that has ever lived that would deny that. They would all say, yes, that fat tattooed man is absolutely correct. Because I am. Because that is what yoga is. However, yoga is kind of a vague term. It refers not only to the yoking to, the connection with, the transcendent through wisdom and insight, i.e. disobjectification. which is liberation, smriti sati, i.e. synthesis, i.e. theurgy, is a lot of different names for one and the same thing. It's the same thing, but it also refers to the end goal. So, this is the backdoor debate about the Atman. We don't even need to talk about the Atman, we can just talk about the cheetah. It's all it. There's not a single video or a single article out there other than mine about this fact. Not a single one. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. I hope it was short enough and concise enough. Thank you so much for watching. Lux Evertas.